Next, we're going to be talking about visual representations. Now, some displays of data can be misleading. Graphs can be used to distort the underlying data by choosing scales that can inflate or deflate a trend. And businesses and individuals can use this to their advantage to try to sell a product or advance their business in probably unethical ways. So you need to be a little bit careful about that. So here's 6 things to watch out for in visual displays of data. First, is there a title? The title needs to explain exactly what's actually being displayed. Number 2, a vertical axis. Are the numbers lined up with tick marks on the vertical axis that clearly indicate the scale? Has the scale been varied to create a more or less dramatic impression that is shown by the actual data? And is there actually a label on the vertical axis? Number 3 is a huge one, artistic design. Do too many design and cosmetic effects draw attention from or distort the data? Making a really pretty graph with some really cool images inside the graph can be eye-catching, but it can actually distort the data, and that you need to be careful of that. Number 4, a horizontal axis. Has the wrong impression been created about how the data is changing because the equally spaced time intervals are not used on the horizontal axis? Furthermore, has a time interval been chosen that allows the data to be interpreted in various ways? So you got to be careful about, are there tick marks? Is it equal? There's lots of things on the horizontal axis you need to be worried about. Bar proportional. Are the bar sizes scaled proportionally in terms of the data that they represent? And then the last one is the source. Is there a source that indicates where the data in the display came from? Do the data come from an entire population or just a sample? Was this random sample used? And if so, are there possible differences between what is displayed in the graph and what is occurring in the entire population? Who is representing the visual data, and what does that person have a special case to make for or against the trend shown by the graph? So you have to question your source. Even if the source is cited, you probably should question where they came from and what are they actually showing you. So here's some examples of possibly misleading visual displays. So our first example, purchasing power of the diminishing dollar. Does it have a title? Sure, it does have a title. So, and is that actually talking about purchasing power diminishing? Yeah, that looks good to me. I think that's a pretty reasonable title. It is a little leading. We're saying it's diminishing, so it's already telling you in the title what's happening in the graph, where a better title should probably just tell you it's the purchasing power of a dollar. Too bad. I think the title looks pretty good. How about for the vertical axis? We have a vertical axis here. It's labeled with dollar signs, and there's lots of tick marks. That looks great. Artistic design. Okay, here's where we get in a little bit of trouble. Because we have a dollar and the dollar wants to be like the same dimensions, what happens here is when your dollar gets taller, it also gets wider, proportionally wider. What that's doing is it's creating a much bigger area for the $1 versus the 43 cents here. So yes, the height is correct, and the height is $1, but because it also expands the width, we have a problem with our horizontal axis. Our horizontal axis is not equal. And the artistic design is what's causing that. Okay, so to keep the dollar proportional artistically, it forced the horizontal to increase and not be consistent. So because the horizontal axis is not consistent, so 180 and 190, that's 10 years apart, and then look at this, we have now 5 years apart. These aren't actually equal distance, and they're not equally spaced values either. So the bar proportionality, we have another problem here because the area of the dollar makes the vertical distance seem larger. The only thing we're really supposed to be looking at is how tall each of these dollars is supposed to be, and it's not. We're making it seem more like how much area it is. The source, we have a source listed as the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and that seems like a good source. We could go a little bit deeper if we wanted to research where this data came from, and is this actually a population data or is this a sample data? But at least it's listed so we can go research that information for ourselves. So all in all, I would say this is not a very good visual display because the artistic dollars made the area skew the data, and the horizontal axis is really not great at all. For our next example, we have a title, the number of square feet in an average U.S. single family home. That's very clear. I like that a lot. Vertical axes. Let's see. Well, there is no vertical axes here at all, right? So that's not good. So we're just going to say none. It didn't actually tell us what we were looking for in tick marks. It didn't have any tick marks, and it didn't label it at all. So that's absolutely bad. The artistic design, we got another problem. First of all, your home sizes are different. So the first house is like the second house but also have an add-on, and then the third house is like the first house with an add-on and then a second add-on, and so the house's sizes aren't actually the same. So that's a problem with the artistic design. And then the shadow is confusing. Are we looking at the shadow's height? Are we looking at the width of the house? I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to be looking at. So shadow height or the size of the house. I'm very confused about where the actual data is supposed to be. So that's no good. The horizontal axes, 1980, 1990. We missed 2000. Like, where did 2000 go? And then it goes up to 2010. But again, it's not equal distance between the values. There's no like tick marks, equal distance. That's missing. So this is not good either. The bar proportionality, the area of the shadow is much, much, much larger in the 2,392 than it is this 1,740. But are we talking about the height? Is it the height of the shadow? Or is it the area of the shadow? It's confusing. The bars are not proportional whatsoever, so this is not very good at all. It does have a source. It says the source is the U.S. Census Bureau, which is actually a very reputable source, and you can always go there and try to find more information from this particular data. So that one was good, but the vertical axis, the artistic design, the horizontal axis, and the bar proportionality totally throw this out as a good quality visual display of data. So just because it's pretty and it has fun things like houses or dollars doesn't mean it's actually a very good quality graph. So just be very careful when you're interpreting graphs in your future.